Sorry, your preview pod so late, folks. Sorry, it's so tardy. It's just been a hell of a week, hell of a week. I mean, it's brutal enough on Monday with everything that happened at Tynecastle. Then all the tiresome fallout after that, the wailing, the gnashing of teeth, and more importantly, the drive for views and likes by being more upset about Rangers losing than the next guy on your various podcasts. And then, but for me, it's even busier. It's even worse. Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. It's European semi-finals. It's European club semi-finals. That's just got me all over the place. You know, it's a big thing for me. I was on Jersnet last night with Ben. I was telling him how we Bruges, and I'd never seen Club Bruges before. You know, 1976 UEFA Cup runners-up, 1978 European Cup final runners-up. I'd never seen Club Brugge. I wasn't at the Scott Nisbet. I've been telling you this all season, so this is just the story of the season for me. So I went to see them in the friendly. I went out my way, cut a holiday short to get to see them in the friendly at Ibrox, because I like to see all these teams. I don't want to do the total train spotting thing where I'm jumping on planes all the time and I can't afford it apart from anything else. And just like every now and then, maybe every 10 years, I'll go to a Bundesliga game or a La Liga game or something just to see two different clubs playing against each other that have played in a European final that I haven't seen at Ibrox. But it's more fun. It's more kind of satisfying if I get to see them at Ibrox. You know, if I get to see them in Scotland coming to us, just as a kind of, it's almost like if we can't win the European Cup, somehow having seen every other team that's played in a European final at Ibrox will makes up for that. Almost a different way of dominating Europe. It's the best I can manage. I know there'll be Celtic fans watching this, so you can have that one for free. But it's the European semi. As I saw Bruges this season, and of course we got them again, and it turned into one of the worst experiences. We got them in the actual Champions League playoff, and it was horrific. But I did see them twice, having never seen them for 40 odd years. I saw them twice. I wasn't at the Scott Nisbet game. I'd tell you the story that, but the 92-93 Champions League game. But this is it was a bit of a different encounter with Bruges this season, Club Bruges, and then Roma. That's probably the biggest one, the biggest team, European finalists. They won the 1961 Fairs Cup. They lost the 1984 European Cup final. They lost the 1991 UEFA Cup final. They won the 2022, the first Conference League, and then they lost the following season's Europa League final. You know, and Anthony Taylor and Jose Mourinho having a spat against Sevilla on penalties. No, the Montiel scoring the winning penalty for Sevilla just the year after he scored, or not even a year, it was like 6 months or so after he'd scored 5 months after he scored the winning penalty in the World Cup final in Qatar. It interests me. You get the European finalist things interest me. So I'd seen both Roma coming to Ibrox. Finally, get to see Roma, get them off the list as well. And that was great, even though the results were terrible. So that was me up to 80 of the 106 European finalists as one. 106 European finalists, and I'd seen 80 of them. Probably, if I could just keep myself, if I avoid that extra pie today, if I don't have that biscuit, or that fourth biscuit with my breakfast tomorrow, I might live long enough to see all the European finalists. If I'm getting into the 20s, I've got a chance. And then the other night, of course, it just started flipping. I mean, the Champions League, you're fine. You've got to watch the games. You've got to watch. It's the Champions League semi-finals. It's your duty as a proper football fan, self-styled, to watch these games. Really kind of landmark moments. And then the real interesting stuff, though, happens on a Thursday, as it tends to when it comes, if you just have a general love of European club competition. 3 new finalists. 3 new finalists. And Strasbourg, that's another. That would have been really embarrassing one as well. If Strasbourg had beat Rayo Vallecano, neither of the two of them had ever played in a major European club final before. So that was guaranteed for that side of the draw in the Conference League. There's going to be a new European finalist. Shakhtar Donetsk. They won they might be one of the biggest European finalists that I've still got on my not got list, because they, of course, won the UEFA Cup in 2009, the last UEFA Cup. As such, became the Europa League the following season. This is the season after Zenit St. Petersburg of Russia had beat. I think I might have been in that final. I can't really remember the details of that one. A Ukrainian club wins it the following season. But so if they were back in the European final, I've never seen them, but it wouldn't be adding an extra one to the list. It doesn't matter how many European finals you've been, you're a European finalist or you're not. Crystal Palace, never played in a European final before. That's 3 out of the last. This is only the 5th Conference League final there's been this season, and 3 of them have featured London clubs. different London clubs. West Ham, Chelsea now, Crystal Palace. But I've seen Crystal Palace. My birthday, was it 2010? I saw a pre-season friendly. I was down in London, so because it was my birthday, I was allowed to go to a pre-season friendly at Selhurst Park. Archibald Leach stand there. Is it the Arthur Waite stand? It's called the one up. Anyway, it was Chelsea in a pre-season friendly, and that was I saw them. But I'd already seen Crystal Palace at a Turf Moor, Burnley. I went to see Burnley against Crystal Palace in the Championship, and that I was just looking up the other day. It was March 2007 that I went to see that. So I'd seen Crystal Palace a few times, so they get to the final. That's like Atalanta getting to the Europa League final a couple of seasons ago. Already seen them. So and automatically added to the list, but also scored off straight away. But Rayo Vallecano and Strasbourg, even if Strasbourg had beaten Rayo Vallecano, never seen either of them. Strasbourg really embarrassing because I wasn't at the game where they played Rangers. I mean, they beat us home and away. I was at the game at Easter Road where David Zatelli of Strasbourg, who'd scored against us in Europe, then scored a winner against Dick Advocaat's Rangers for Alec McLeish's Rangers at Easter Road. I was at that one. But the Strasbourg game is one of the last European games I missed. I've basically seen most of the ones at Ibrox in the 21st century, but I was still kind of student and massively in debt and all that in the 90s, so I didn't. A lot of the 90s, I missed a lot of football, a lot of Rangers. So I didn't go to that one, so that'd been quite embarrassing to admit that I'd not seen Strasbourg before. But Rayo Vallecano's even worse because I was in Madrid. Was it 10 years ago, 11 years ago? 11 years ago. Went to the Manzanares, the old Atletico Madrid's old ground, their previous ground, and saw, still Simeone's Atletico Madrid. Griezmann scored for them this night. Saw them beating Real Sociedad, David Moyes' Sociedad in a La Liga game. I will talk about the Old Firm game. And that was great, and I've seen Atletico Madrid. I've told you before, I've seen them at Tynecastle back in the 90s because a storied European finalist from almost day one at Atletico Madrid. But I was in Madrid and I saw it. So my wife came along with me. She likes a football. She likes a bit of football, particularly if it's a kind of glamorous big game or whatever. But she's only got a certain tolerance for that. And the next day, we were only in Madrid for about 4 or 5 days, and we went to the Bernabeu and did during the day. One of the next days, and we did a tour of the Bernabeu, and I think it was like the Wednesday night. Rayo Vallecano were at home. They were at home. I think it was a La Liga game, and I just couldn't, because we only had maybe one more night of the holiday. We'd already done the whole thing of the Atletico Madrid thing. Was great. It was a whole kind of night. It was smashing. And then the tour of the Bernabeu, really dramatic, really good, but it is a whole day of football stuff. And she was just kind of done by that point. And also, I'd read that Rayo, their fans in Vallecas, aren't too keen on foreigners, aren't too keen on tourists just coming along to get photographs and that. So I thought I can't really drag her into that. I can't be risking that. That might spoil the holiday. But I have had a chance to see them, and there they go. They're in a bloody European final. The third Madrid club to get to a European final, and the only Madrid club to get to a European final this season. That's quite the achievement. But it buggers me up because that's 109 European finalists now. I'm up to 81 because of Crystal Palace, but there's 2 more that I've got to see. That was doing and then there's all the stats you've got to get involved in as well. I'm still trying to work out the whole thing. I know that it's the Crystal Palace against Rayo Vallecano. That is the first time there's been a European final between 2 clubs that are in they're in their first European final. 2 debutant clubs in terms of any European final. It's the first time there's been a European final between 2 clubs like that in 20 years, and that was also Spain against England. That was Sevilla against. I know it was only 20 years ago Sevilla played in their first European final, and they've won 7 UEFA Cup / Europa Leagues, and the first one was the night they beat Middlesbrough in a Premier League promotion playoff today. They beat them in Eindhoven back in 2026, and Enzo Maresca, their manager, scoring 2 goals. The guy who was the manager of Chelsea last season when they won the Conference League against Real Betis. The rivals of I don't know. I like the European finalist stuff. Real Betis getting to the final of the Conference League last season, they go on the list, but I've seen them. We saw them at Ibrox, and a lot of you have seen them in the Benito Villamarín as well. So that was they're on the list, but I've scored them off. And I'm watching the game at Villa Park. Really impressive display by Aston Villa against Nottingham Forest, and one of those 2 were going to feature in their first non-European Cup final. Now I'll get into that on another day, but it was a fantastic performance. But I think it's John McGinn. is he the first when was the last time a Scotsman scored 2 goals in the semi-final at a European competition? And I know that. And I know that John McGinn was playing against Olympiacos at Villa Park in the second leg 2 seasons ago when El Kabi, who scored against us in the Europa League the following season, he scored a hat-trick at Villa Park for Olympiacos. While playing against John McGinn, it'd be quite a thing if John McGinn played in 2 different European finals, one where an opposition guy had scored a hat-trick against him, and one where John McGinn scored an extra, but didn't get the other goal for a third goal. They get subbed off, but then you get the whole thing with Unai Emery. That's 4 different clubs, and he's taken to the final of the same competition. Sevilla, Villarreal, Arsenal, and that's him taking Aston Villa. That's an amazing stat. And I was had to sit in Friday and work out when's the last time we had 3 new, because Freiburg, bastards, they beat Braga, and Braga lost the second Europa League final as such, when it changed its name to Europa League and changed the format slightly, back in 2011 in Dublin against Porto. And God, we've all seen Braga plenty of times, so it'd be no problem if they'd get through to that final. They've been scored off the list for a while now, thoroughly scored off it. But the Braga, the whole thing, they didn't. It was Freiburg beat them. They get man sent off early on that second leg, and Freiburg beat them. And I've never seen Freiburg. I've seen plenty of German teams. I've seen Bundesliga, Zweite Bundesliga, the second tier and third tier when it was still the regional Liga Nord. I've seen 3 different tiers of German football. I've seen the German national team in Munich, in Germany, and in England, and at Hampden. But I've never seen. I've seen like Arminia Bielefeld, but I've never seen Freiburg. So that was them on the list as well. So that was kind of pissing me off. And there's 3 new European finals. When's the last time that happened? I had to sit down and work that out, and I come up with an answer. What was it? It was 1992. 1992, and it was when Torino, believe it or not, who we beat in the quarterfinals of the 72 Continental Cup, they got to 1992. It used to be a bad week for Rangers, maybe still trying to waste a bit of time, but we got to the 1990. Torino got to 1992 UEFA Cup final, and you also had, what was the other one that season, 92. That was Barcelona against Sampdoria at Wembley in the European Cup final, which has been played in the Champions League format. It was the last season before the Champions League became the official new kind of branding of the European Cup. And it was Werder Bremen against Monaco in the 92 Cup Winners' Cup final. Arsene Wenger's Monaco. Arsene Wenger's lost all 3 of the 3 European finals now. It's not, there's 4 altogether now, historically adding the Conference League, but he lost the Cup Winners' Cup final as manager of Monaco in 1992 to Otto Rehhagel's Werder Bremen. And that was both their first European finals, Monaco and Werder Bremen. They've subsequently lost a European final each since then. Werder Bremen lost to Shakhtar Donetsk, and that Arsene Wenger lost the 2000 UEFA Cup final as Arsenal managed the Galatasaray, and lost the 2006 Champions League final to Barcelona in Paris, and now Arsenal 20 years later are playing Paris in the final of the Champions League. But that was Werder Bremen against, in the Stadium of Light, the old Stadium of Light, where Otto Rehhagel went back as Greece manager and won 1-0 in the final of the Euros. They done up the rebuilt Stadium of Light in Lisbon, and the only goal of the game was scored by a Werder Bremen player, the Greek Angelos Haristeas. He scored the only goal of the game, the Euro 2004 final, and Otto Rehhagel was the manager, Stadium of Light, and he'd been the manager of Werder Bremen when they won their first, they played in their first European final, club final, and they won the Cup Winners' Cup, same stadium, kind of. So there you go. That was all the stuff that was going through my mind. Ajax beat Torino in the 1992 UEFA Cup final. Ajax, of course, had played plenty of European finals by then. Ajax had played that was them playing all the European finals. That was them sorting completing the package, having won all 3 European trophies. Ajax, of course, because they won and lost the Cup Winners' Cup final in 1987. They won it. 1988, they lost the final. But Ajax, actually, the only Dutch club ever to play. That was the only time a Dutch club had reached the final of the Cup Winners' Cup. I mean, the Dutch have won the 3 different teams that have won the European Cup and all that. All the things the Dutch have won. They're winning the Euros at the national, international level, and 3 World Cup finals, like the actual final of the World Cup and that. But they've only once won. Even like Scotland, 2 winners of the Cup Winners' Cup. And we're in the final 3 times, and Aberdeen in the final once. We had 4 times. Scotland have reached the final of the Cup Winners' Cup. 2 different clubs have won it. The Dutch only once. Ajax once, and they lost it again They lost the final the following season. I don't know why I don't want to talk about it. It's been a hard week. That's why this pod's a bit late. You'll be lucky to listen to all of this before the game actually starts at Parkhead, and maybe that's a good thing. I was in the garden this time last Saturday, and it was a nice weekend. No football. And remember that last weekend, Saturday, Sunday, we free. We knew the game was getting played Monday night at Tynecastle, but it let us actually have a nice free weekend, and the weather was lovely as well. And I'm sitting out in the garden. I don't have much of a garden, just a wee patch of grass and all that. But I was looking at the birds. I was watching the birds. I'd never noticed the olive underparts on this, but the black cap. The black cap is the bird that's. I've got this book here. The Lomond Guide to Birds, that I've had for years. It was my wife's auntie gave me this, because one time I think I was discussing just getting your 40s. I'm heading for my 60s now. I'm getting into the late 50s. Can I drop that book? I've got things to show you. But I'd probably discussing this with my wife's auntie through at the in-laws, through in the East Coast there, and I was saying to her years ago, as I started noticing the birds more, And I was, I think it's a middle-aged man. As you get a bit older, you start looking at the birds more than you used to. You start paying them more attention. You appreciate them more, and you become more kind of curious about what their names were. And shut up! I don't mean that. You know what I mean? Listen, it's an ornithology metaphor about rangers. It's no, ornithology is a metaphor for women. For total. It's no that kind of podcast. It never has been. You hear me going about King Billy and popes and all that. Well, I'm not doing the whole crude thing about women's totally, anti-sexism and that here as well. I'm not perving over the birds kind of thing. But I'm perving over the winged things that fly about the air and that. I was talking of double meanings and metaphors. Thank to Colin Cameron, legend of this here podcast, for reminding me. It was a Blue Monday. Rangers endured a Blue Monday. He told me before I was supposed to shove up the new order, the famous the 12-inch. I forgot to put my 12-incher up there. I've got to shove my 12-inch up there. It's no that kind of podcast, right? Shut up. It's no. I'm talking about vinyl, 12-inch vinyl, famous dance, new order song. Tune, Blue Monday, because we were blue on Monday and we was a Blue Monday. I shoved it into my midweek podcast, just assessing the Danny Röhl, the fallout after losing that game at Tynecastle. So thanks to Colin for that. That's the kind of references and double meanings we go in for here. But mostly thanks to everybody for no getting in touch after I put up that pod on Wednesday night with the Blue Monday, the single in the background of the thumbnail, and usually nobody, the Fat Egg podcast, gets in touch to do that thing of going, do you know actually that every time New Order went on to Top of the Pops and sang Blue Monday live, it dropped down the charts? Aye, we all know that. Everybody knows that. Do you know that every time they sold the original run of Blue Monday, every time they sold one of the 12-inch singles, they actually lost money because of the Peter Saville sleeve design was so expensive? Aye, we all know that. Everybody knows that. Thanks for that. That's the kind of equivalent of somebody who gets in touch usually at this time of the season or one of these games going, actually, if you slag the chapels, see, chapels aren't actually any particular Christian denomination. So if you slag the chapels, it's not a Catholic church you're slagging. It's just a small chapel. Actually means a small church building. So if you're slagging chapels, it could actually mean that you're slagging Protestants. I know, mate. Next you'll be telling me that Protestants are actually allowed to wear crucifixes as well. It's not that kind of podcast. But the last 7 days ago, at this point 7 days ago, I'm sitting out in the garden, so chilled out compared to what I am just now. But I was looking up, I didn't realise, I'm looking up in my eyes. I saw this bird, I thought, I don't really recognise that. It looks kind of familiar, but I don't think I've ever seen that. So what I've done with this is, over the years, I don't know anything about bird watching. As you get older, you want to know their names, you want to write it down, and I've obviously you see like a blue tit all the time, you see them everywhere. But I just decided one day I would write down, okay, I've spotted a blue tit, and I wrote down the date there. What was that? That was 2024, 6th of May 2024. So that's a great tit. The blue tit, oh God, I've seen these so often, I haven't actually dated that. So that's ruining what I mean. A coal tit, for example, 10:58 a.m. Wednesday, 19th of October 2022. Sat at the front window of our Ambleside holiday cottage garden. Oh, what a wanker. But I'd obviously taken this with me on holiday. Okay, so this wee book, I would just note down ones that I had seen. Just kind of anal retentive type stuff. Just curious. It's nice. A nice way to chill out in the garden. No drink involved, maybe that's what it's all about. And I saw this one last week, and I thought, it's got a kind of black cap there. I wonder what that's called, you know. And I rushed inside and I got the book, and I come back out. It's called a black cap. No, that's the name of it. But I hadn't noticed the olive underparts, olive grey underparts. There, it's there. Oh, the black cap. You picture I'm holding up there, black cap, and the females actually get red hair, and that's a green pen, and that's green ink in there because it's outside, it's outdoorsy. You know, it's green. No, it's no colour coded bigotry in this podcast. I know I go on about green and blue and stuff like that, but I try to avoid that kind of stuff, getting too bitter and all that. So I was writing down all the details I could find about it, but I was reading the details in the book, and it said the adult male is greyish olive above, with characteristic black crown, greyish olive. And my wife had been sitting at the back door, and she goes, it's a bit green there. And I'm thinking, it just looks grey to me. You know, went in, got the book, and as usual was proven that I was totally wrong, and she was totally right. That's just the way things tend to work. And I was like, is that because I'm so bigoted that I can't even notice green? And the greyish green, no, Celtic in their green and grey, that's a kind of slander from Rangers fans when we don't want to talk about Celtic playing in green and white. We talk about green and grey because they're manky. You know, Celtic fans do the same way, they're all tramps, etc. That's part of the standard slag. And I thought, is that what it's all about? The greenish underparts and the black cap. And I thought maybe it could be something else. The black cap kind of reminding you of what a judge puts on, you know, when he's handing out a death sentence. And the way it goes through the eyes, it's almost like a strap as well, going through the eyes of the bird. I'm trying to hold this up again to the camera. You know, it just cuts it right across the eyes, the black cap. It's a bit like the mask, the eye mask that's worn in days of yore by the axeman executioner before he chops the head off of Mary Queen of Scots or whatever. Just a real kind of fatalism. That was last Saturday. It was a bit looking towards the game on the Monday. And then I thought, I better check that it's no any other birds. I'm just being because I'm a total amateur, clueless when it comes to bird spotting. I'll look for other ones with black heads on them, with black noggins, and I could tell that that's the marsh tit. It's got a wee. I'm looking at this myself. It's got a wee kind of beard as well, and it's a couple of centimetres smaller as well. So it wasn't that one, and the other one it could have been was the coal tit, and it wasn't the coal tit because the coal tit's got all this black stuff here and just totally different altogether. I've seen coal tits plenty of times. But I was looking at the coal tit. At this point, my wife had left me because I was talking so much crap. She's inside, and I'm sitting outside, and it was on the top branch of the dead tree that we've got at the bottom of the garden. The dead tree that still flowers like a zombie tree. And this coal tit was right up the top of that, looking absolutely beautiful. The sun was kind of setting. It was maybe 8 o'clock at night. That way, it's gone totally red. The sun in the background, and I'm thinking it looks like it's maroon. It's kind of shining, this kind of reddish, pinkish, maybe even maroon, violet type hue coming off the coat. And I was looking at it's not supposed to look like that, is it? And the sun was setting. I thought maybe that's what it is, just the way the sun's hitting it. Also, the hay fever is kind of hitting me. My eyes are a bit watery. Maybe I'm just imagining this. But then I looked it up. I looked at the actual words next to the picture of the coat, and it was saying olive grey underparts with richer cinnamon tones on the flanks. Richer cinnamon tones on the flanks. Cinnamon. So I wasn't imagining it. Of course, the time I do actually get it right, the colours on it, there's nobody there to verify that too. But I thought, is that what it is? I've seen the executioner, and it's the cinnamon tones, like hearts, like a maroon almost kit. And then we go out on the Monday night, and that's it. It's all over. It isn't all over. It isn't technically. It isn't all over. And it has been a mad season. Motherwell beating Hearts isn't a particularly insane result. It's the way this season has gone, and Hearts have struggled against Motherwell. But by the time you see this, it'll probably be over, the Motherwell against Hearts. But you've switched off by now anyway with that European Cup stuff, but if not with the bird spotting stuff. But it might, it's not actually beyond the realms of possibility that Rangers could still win this title. It's even more likely that Celtic could still win this title. But in a situation where I'm actually feeling, and I verified this with Ben on Jersnet last night, he's feeling the same. We want to go into an Old Firm game knowing that we can't win the league. When there's still, if we get the news in tonight that Motherwell have maybe even drawn with Hearts, have stopped Hearts pushing further ahead of Celtic in the league, we're going to be a bit gutted. We're going to be worried. we're going to feel the execution is going to get even worse. It's going to be, you're going to get the blunt blade, of Celtic actually winning the title and no ourselves, and that is something we can possibly. How you doing, folks? This is your Fat Eck. I know a lot of you thought it was all over in Monday night, and it was, but still I cling. But it'll all be irrefutably over, and there'll be no more games to play for Rangers in 2025-2026. By this time next Saturday, I'm talking to you at that's 4:30 on Saturday afternoon, and this time next week it'll be over. We'll have played Falkirk. Less than a week until it's all done, until there's no games left to play for Rangers, but we still, at this point in time, have 3 games left to play. And I read a Bill Leckie article during the week, or I say an article, more like a piece on a website. I read the piece for The Sun. That's how desperate I was getting. It's for some sort of guidance as to what was happening with our manager, some sort of way to navigate through all the furore around him coming for the Rangers support. That's how bad it gets yet again. But this time there's the added kicker of Celtic at Parkhead, threatening to be that game that I've always needed to see with every under pressure Rangers manager, which finally proves irrefutably that Rangers manager has lost the dressing room. He's gone, and therefore it is okay to sack him. Real Madrid are going to the Nou Camp this weekend, trying to stop Barcelona sealing La Liga, and we're going to Parkhead trying to stop Celtic stealing the SPFL Premiership title. Now, I don't think it will come to Danny Röhl getting sacked. I'm reassured by Friday's pre-match presser, or is that me just still clinging to forlorn hope as everything actually ruined? Preview pod coming to you in association with Jersnet. Check out Jersnet last night, just to listen to Ben's sensible patter compared to my own drivel. And myself and Ben previewing the Old Firm game. And Ben had been his wee girl. He's got 4 wee girls, and he'd just finished up with one of his wee girls' 5th birthday party, and I think they were all making far more sense and far better behaved than I was on that pod. He'd had enough kind of gurning and whining, people being overstimulated. Obviously, too much cake. I'm always eating too much cake, but my apologies to Ben for him having to kind of talk me down or stop me whining and whining. I just need to get to my bed. I needed burped and probably to get to my bed. But Ben had to deal with me last night being kind of overstimulated. I think I'm at a stage with Jersnet. I think they just let me on like just that old kind of pain in the arse pensioner. That I'm not a veteran, but I did stuff during the war. Maybe I was in the Home Guard or something. It's like you can't. He's like, come on, Frankie. He's a pain in the arse. I have to go in the podcast with. Hey, he went through. That's the guy. See when Philip Clement first arrived. He was when Gerrard left. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst came in, and Michael Beale come in, right up to Philip Clement. He dealt with all that. He was doing preview pods. He was doing post-match reaction pods. He was doing the wee shorts, the wee promotional shots that you get onto. You pay respect to that guy because he's a pain in the arse. He is a fucking pain in the arse. That's fair enough. But it's like you got to respect your elders. I think that's the only reason I get on there. So I'm sponsored by Jersnet, and I'm also sponsored by my own blog that I just rediscovered, and if I'm going to talk about European finalists, I might as well. The €100 club finalists, all one word, but 100 and the numerals 100 Euro club finalists.wordpress.com. If you want to check out some of my patter about European finalists, it's not an app or anything like that. It's just a horrifically bad, cheap, kind of pro forma type of. It's WordPress. You know what WordPress is all about. Type of blog, so it's hellish to navigate and all that. But in there, I do the one bit that I've kept up to date. I started it years ago on the back of an article that I wrote for When Saturday Comes years ago about my love of bagging European finalists, for want of a better term. It's in there. A link to that article's in there. If you like the European finalist stuff, then I'm keen to get to know you. So you get in there and you can read that. I've got a list. Probably the best bit is the got, not got list. That's the only bit I keep up to date now. And some of the list of the 81 clubs that I've seen in the flesh, and the 28 clubs that I've still to see in the flesh that have appeared in a European final. But some of them you can see there's a link, a hyperlink. You click on that and you'll get me actually writing about these clubs. I mean, I wrote about them about 10 years ago and haven't updated anything that I wrote about them. The idea was I was going to do a personal summary, a personal piece on every single European finalist that I'd seen in the flesh about them from my point of view. And I've only really done one on Rangers, Celtic, Aberdeen, Dundee United, Tottenham, Inter, I think West Ham. I think that's it. And like West Ham have won the Conference League since I last wrote that piece. I was only talking about the two Cup Winners' Cup finals, and Spurs, they've been the Champions League final and won the Europa League since I wrote my piece on them. Rangers have been back in the bloody European final since I wrote the piece on it. It's all out of date, but you get some. Celtic fans might enjoy my kind of earthy opinions on Celtic getting to a European final. It's alright, it's respectful. It's just one of the. So, yeah, my name's Alec Anderson. If I hadn't told him you'd got the cottage, if I hadn't told him you were active, sorry, that's the bit you got to get the lyric right, and it's one of my favourite films of all time, and I fucked it straight away. It's been that kind of week. If I hadn't told him you were active, we'd never have got the cottage. With Neil and I. That's Richard E. Grant talking to Paul McGann. That's with Neil talking to Marwood about his rapacious Uncle Monty. And it's the best use of the word active until yesterday, until heard. I'm infantile. If you've watched with Neil and I, you'll be the same thing yourself. You can't help but hear it coming up. One of your favourite films. But when you hear your manager of your football club using it, and yesterday it was Danny Röhl talking about active. His players aren't active enough against Hearts. That was the problem, and that's the only problem. I think that is the only problem, and he's addressing it, and he's trying to solve it. It's almost like he's just been there since October. He's got a whole bunch of new players and players that are leaving, and he's trying to get the best out of them, and he only has lost by a single goal at the home of a team who hasn't lost at home all season and this top of the league. It's not as disastrous as we thought it was, but it was, if I hadn't told him you're active, we would never have got the cottage. And also, I think we're going to throw in favourite films there for old time's sake. Heat, Michael Mann's Heat, it also makes me think of, well, I am over-fucking-whelmed. I am actually overwhelmed by everything that's happened this week. The backlash and having to go through this whole thing of slagging a Rangers manager again, or me, in my case, slightly defending him and not actually knowing whether to defend him or not. It's not. I can barely analyse the situation objectively for all the noise around it, and everything that happened to Russell Martin. I think there's more to it than the particular failures on the pitch at any one moment in time. It's become an institutionalised thing with the Rangers support. But we're no winning stuff. So somebody has to get sacked. There's nobody left to sack. Let's sack Danny Röhl, that's fine. But where's it? We're going to start again. We're always having to start again. It's going to have to be done. We're going to have to see it through. And that's what I was thinking. I am over-fucking-whelmed. And that's Al Pacino and he talking to Tone Loc, or talking to Albert Torina, playing the Tone Loc's brother, Tone Loc's character's brother. He's a CI, he's a criminal informant, and he go to meet him at the club and the BJ's in Alvarado. I think it's like 2 a.m. or something, and he goes to meet him there to get this. My brother's got a lead for you. He's got somebody who wants to tell you. You've met an ex-con on the street. Fantastic. This Slick's no motherfucking joke. Slick, say what? What's his name? Slick. That's it. That's the moment he gets in. That's when Vincent Hanna gets into Neil McCauley's crew, because Michael Chirito had used the word slick when trying to tell Wayne Grow to take it easy with the guards. And he'd end up executing one of the guards, meaning they had to execute them all. Used the word slick. Somebody heard them saying slick, told the police that, and that's it. But at first, Al Pacino thinks it's a bad lead. He thinks it's a bad. You're just telling me that a guy you used to be locked up with, you met him on the street, and he told you that he wasn't doing anything. And because he's a big fiend for action, your words, Tone Loc. Because he's a big fiend for action, you don't believe him. So right there and then, you knew he had something going on. That's no telling me in. This Slick's no motherfucking joke. That's it. That was it. But at first, when he's been sarcastic about that information, I am over-fucking-whelmed. And that's been going through my head this week. Sorry, folks, I'm ranting and raving here. My name is Alec Anderson, and yeah, Russell Martin. Just say that to you. He beat Livingston at Livingston. Danny Röhl only drew with him. Russell Martin never lost a domestic cup game. Danny Röhl has lost 2 domestic cup games. Both of them to Celtic. Russell Martin did not lose an Old Firm game. He's unbeaten against Celtic Russell Martin. Russell Martin won 2 European games. And they're against Victoria Polzenia, who've got a great reputation in recent years in the Champions League, apart from anything else. They're a well-known name in Europe. And Panathinaikos, 1971 European Cup runners-up, Panathinaikos. Great names. He beat both of them, just individual matches. And Danny Röhl has won 1 European game, and it was against the worst Ludogorets Razgrad side in 15 years. They've lost the league. They haven't won the Bulgarian league for the first time in 15 years this season, Ludogorets Razgrad, and we scraped to a 1-0 win over them. So if you're looking for a solution, he's only lost once to Hearts. He only lost once to Hearts, did Russell Martin. Danny Röhl has lost twice to Hearts. Russell Martin drew away with Falkirk. Danny Röhl drew at Ibrox with Falkirk. Russell Martin had never trailed Falkirk in a game as Rangers manager. Never trailed them, never been behind. Danny Röhl was 2-0 down to Falkirk this season. So I don't know. For me, it's pretty straightforward. If you want to replace the manager, if you want to get somebody who on paper is a lot better, then let's just go back to the man that I was defending to the hilt at the beginning of the season. Yeah, no, it's handy that the whole kind of thing of Rangers apparently seeming to have chucked the league title on Monday night has taken over. It's distracted from the tickets stuff, the ticketing thing, the fact that Celtic were trying to make sure that we couldn't get our ticket allocation, or make sure we'd only get it on the proviso that we didn't give the Union Bears, the terrifying, scary teenage Union Bears, any tickets for Parkhead. It was one of the most customary kind of cheating when it gets tight. Any kind of title race has got tight over the last 20 years. It's the Peter Lawwell playbook. Something like this was always going to happen. And a real stomach churner for me, Celtic's attitude towards this, particularly when they've shown absolutely no signs of owning up to what their own fans did at our stadium in that Scottish Cup quarter-final. Celtic fans invaded the pitch. Our fans invaded the pitch as well. That's just, no, but it can't be that. It can't just be left at that. You've got the CCTV footage coming out. Yesterday, the pictures coming out in the press, was it Thursday or Friday, of people who were involved in the disorder of the Scottish Cup quarter-final, or allegedly people that the police want to talk to in connection with that disorder. And that's how it gets dealt with. Celtic don't stick their fucking nose in and tell folk how to deal with disorder. We don't tell them how to deal with their fans. If they trash the place, they get banned, and that's all there is to it. But it's been pretty sickening. The othering of the Rangers supporters, basically that's what it's all about. From Celtic going into this game, it sets it up so that we take a hit either way. Either we don't take a ticket allocation, and Celtic have got 60,000 Celtic fans at Parkhead for a crucial game. This is after we gave them the biggest allocation in the league in years, a league derby at Ibrox. For the last league game, we played against each other, 2 each game back in March, and then the following week we went with the safest possible interpretation of the Scottish Cup guidelines about away fans, and we gave them the full Brimlin for the first time in years. We gave them the biggest allocation an away support in an Old Firm game has had for years, and they completely trashed it. They trashed the Brimlin, they trashed the agreement, they had fans invading, busting through the turnstiles. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to make out that our fans are perfectly well behaved, or in fact that any fan group is worse than the other, but there's been no recognition of that by Celtic at all. It's been a bit, let's demonise the Rangers fans for eventually reacting to that in the kind of small way that we did a bunch of Waynes. But they threw flares at us, would have set us all on fire. They could just get picked up and thrown straight back at them. That's not how it goes down at the actual football. So, aye, the managerial doubt and the rumours have certainly taken the attention of Celtic's kind of customary cheating when the going gets tough. And now the Union Bears have stepped up by stepping down. They took the hit, the Union Bears. Absolutely classy move. We'll let other Rangers fans go. We want to make sure Rangers get the full allocation. If there's a problem with us, we'll step away. There's always going to be a problem. They're trying to demonise these guys. These are the only evil ultras in all of Scotland. There's documentaries in the BBC about how great ultra culture is. And yet, the only time there's kind of evil attached to it is all Rangers stuff. And it just, I see the Union Bears every week at Ibrox. Every time I go to Ibrox, I don't miss a home game. I don't miss any games at Hampden. And by and large, they're no worse than any other set of ultras when it comes to a bit of naughtiness. The ultras, it's all transgressive. It's young men off the ball. I I'm going to part that bit just now because it gets a bit. It's bitter. I just want to. It sounds bitter, and I think that's what's been encouraged by Celtic officially. The one thing to note just now is that some kind of older bears are going to the game tomorrow, and the larynxes just haven't got a chance. I hope they've been training all week. I hope they've been out the back door singing as loud as they possibly can to kind of warm up the larynxes and warm up the voice boxes because they're going to blow a gasket tomorrow. The Union Bears just do all the colour, do all the singing. We all join in when we feel like it. Have done for years. I'll have to go out there and do that singing yourself tomorrow. All hands to the pump. I'm not going to the game, and thank God, because I don't think my voice could handle it. But don't get me wrong. When it comes to this, I know Celtic fans sometimes will tune into these things, and I've played today. I actually hate this. It's a really cheap thing to say, but I do. Like both my grandfathers are Catholic, my mum's Catholic. It's not that I don't have any skin in this game. It's like I've got, that I'm so fat because I've got skin in both sides of that game kind of thing. I've got so much skin in that game. Insulting, using the Hun stuff or using the Fenian stuff or that kind of the orange bastard or whatever, that hurts me. It all hurts me. It's all insult. It's all personal. I was watching Aston Villa against Nottingham Forest, Europa League semi-final the other night, as I say, and the commentary was a great performance, a great atmosphere, great performance by Aston Villa. Really, great. I love my European finalists, Nottingham Forest. They've played in 2 European finals before, both the European Cup. Then, like 2 years later, Aston Villa are in the European Cup. I remember them. I remember them being European Cup, and it was like, well, it's a bit of a downer if a team has been champions of Europe and they haven't played in any other European finals. It seems a bit weird, like they're kind of insulting the game. So it was nice to know that one of them was going to get to their. Well, Forest played 2 European Cup finals, so it'd be their 3rd European final, but their first in another competition, and Villa would be getting to the 2nd European final they've reached ever after having won the thing in 1982 against Germans, against Bayern in Rotterdam. So it was really intense. I was really enjoying it, getting quite into it, and then there's John McGinn scoring the 2 goals, and Ali McCoist is on co-coms. And he's a legend, of course, of the co-coms, Ali McCoist, and he mentions John McGinn being Scottish. I just hope he's all right for the World Cup this summer. Fucking, did you hear it? That Fletcher, was it Darren Fletcher, the guy's name? The co-commentator, Fletcher, maybe I can't remember what his name. But straight away, I hope he's fit for those 3 games, Ali. Like, fuck you. And it's that thing, Scotland do only get to 3 games. We never get past. Sometimes there's only 2 games in the group stage. You go back to the 50s. We never get out the group stage. Never get out the first round group stage at a tournament. That's fine. Okay, we don't. And I know straight away will be, they're not much a sense of humour, do they? That's fucking raging. I was just sitting and going, and Ali McCoy's going, right, he's been professional. But at Villa Park. But Ali McCoy scored the only goal of the game against Switzerland, Euro 96. I had a fucking ticket for Anfield. I had a ticket. I was going to all sorts of games at Euro 96. A ticket fest. I got as many tickets as bought tickets for the semi-final, the final. My mate and I are sitting with 2 tickets for the back row at the Kop at Anfield for whoever was in that quarter-final. And it was going to be Scotland. Not only was Scotland heading for a major, tournament knockout stage, we're going to finally get out the group stage. I was going to fucking be there. It was going to be at Anfield with all the associations that's got with Scotland, Shankly, Douglas, Hansen, Souness, that Kenny Dow goal against Wales. No, that was going to be amazing. But we were going to be there. And then David Seaman, England, let the fucking ball through their legs for one paltry consolation goal for the Dutch that put them through. It's still on us. It's still our fault. But you're at Villa Park. With Ali McCoist, a Scottish legend of a goal scorer. And he scored the winner against Switzerland, the only goal of the game. And you're fucking talking about having a jibe at Scotland. Who are you trying to appeal to, TNT? I nearly sent in the tweets, apart from the fact that it would have attracted all sorts of, you sweaty bastard from English tweeters and all that. But that was absolutely horrible. And it made me feel horrible to my core. So I get that thing of somebody insults. That's nothing. A kind of international football insult, kind of jibe aimed at your international football team. That's nothing compared to what it must feel like if there's folks calling you a Fenian bastard. That's you, your family, your mum, your dad, your grandparents sometimes. That's a horrible, horrible thing. I get it. I get the bile of them. I get why Celtic fans will hate Rangers fans. But I also been going to these games for years. I live with the fact that I meet plenty of Celtic fans. through my life who've been fucking horrible to me when it comes to coming out the hun bastards a day, othering me, telling me I'm inferior because I have a religion I don't even have. I support Rangers, but I'm neither Protestant nor Catholic. I wasn't inducted into any particular religion, but I get what it's like. But Bill Struth greenhouse. Bill Struth had a greenhouse at the back of the Broomlin Terracing, the old Celtic end at the old Ibrox, or Ibrox as it is currently, as it has been since like 1899 on the same footprint. But when we had the terracing before the redevelopment, kind of in the late 70s, early 80s, and that was still the Celtic end, the same end of the ground as they were in for that Scottish Cup quarter final back in March. And on the slopes outside, there's no grass growth, the old slopes, the old terraces in between the steps, there'll be grass growing, the exit steps. And on the ones at the back of the Celtic end, you've seen photographs on social media of Ibrox when they had, I think they had Ibrox Stadium, or Rangers, was it Ibrox, they had picked out in kind of white rockery on the back of that, but also there was a greenhouse there that was Bill Struth, probably a more famous manager. He had a greenhouse there, and the thing was that in all the years, all the decades that Bill Struth was involved at Rangers, making Rangers the massive club they are in so many ways, Bill Struth, not one brick, not one stone was ever thrown through that greenhouse, by Celtic supporters anyway, after an Old Firm game. This was a thing. Just, I don't know, it's called respect. It's called basic respect. You used to have it, your supporters used to have it. Celtic FC don't have it. The people running Celtic for 20 years now, they don't have that, and they're encouraging a level of behaviour that hasn't always been as acceptable at Old Firm games as some people would make out. Like most people who kind of cry conspiracy and cheating, it's because they're judging others by their own standards. I think the Celtic board are more, they're cleverer than that. It's not even that blatant. I'm no one here talking about King Billy, but I don't deal with that stuff. Talking King Billy and the Pope and that kind of thing. I'm much bigger than that. But Rangers supporters today are they're going to the game. I had a message that was reposted, I think, by Stevie Clifford of the Rangers Review. I saw Steve Clifford of the Four Lads Had a Dream podcast and Rangers Review put this up on Twitter. Show Rangers are a force for good in Scotland. Basically a warning from the club, from Rangers, saying no paraphernalia, no insulting banners, no insulting songs, no incursions onto the pitch. Just behave yourselves and show Rangers are a force for good in Scotland. And I hope that's the way it goes. But it's because the way we were treated by Celtic, we gave these bastards their biggest allocation for years at Ibrox in the league. The last time we played them in the league, and they're reciprocating that with conditions. That's horrific. The sporting integrity stuff, we've been getting that for years. It's been somebody who talks about sporting integrity a lot. Usually you realise that they're cheating. Those who actually feel sporting integrity don't need to talk about it. That's what we're there for. Full Broomlin we gave them, and the biggest threat to the safety of Celtic fans in that game was the overcrowding caused by Celtic fans. In an end of the ground where the disaster in 1902 was. It was a Scotland-England game. So they're writing stuff on the walls. Not all Celtic fans. It doesn't take many. It's like the whole thing about breaking a minute's silence. You could have 8,000 people standing in perfect silence. It just takes two folk to break the silence. It doesn't mean you kind of condemn. You should be praising everybody else that kept the silence, but that's never how it works. And Celtic fans are wrecking the seats and writing stuff about celebrating the Ibrox disaster, and celebrating a disaster where people lost their life in the very place where people did lose their life. And the biggest threat to the safety of the Celtic fans that day was the overcrowding, which caused the pitch invasion at the end, but also let them use it as an excuse to get on the pitch, and they were coming further and further forward. They get separated. There was a few scuffles and what have you. There was disorder, and the police are now dealing with it. But Celtic took it upon themselves to mention nothing about their own, the misbehaviour of their own fans, and start this thing of othering Rangers fans. And they wanted to make sure the Union Bears, you must guarantee the Union Bears don't come to Parkhead. Safety concerns. The idea that 58,000 Celtic fans are shitting themselves from a couple of hundred Union Bears teenagers, most of them, is total nonsense. Some guys in their early 20s. And there's absolutely no way our team are going to win tomorrow, because when you start feeling anger, when you start feeling stuff in the pit of your stomach. It just makes you want to win a game so fucking badly. You're already distracted. It doesn't work like that. Life usually works the other way. Like, I really don't like Martin O'Neill because I think he plays up to that whole kind of stuff. He did the same thing. And there's discussions about what happened. The Scottish go, just saw our fans on there celebrating. Next, I turned round and there's all these masked hoodlums coming towards us. The Green Brigade are called a brigade because it's IRA talk. And that's fine. If that's what you want to romanticise, if that's what you're into, that's fine. We're hated because we're unionists, and it's the union bears and that kind of stuff. It's transgressive. This is what ultras do. But they celebrate, like, they had banners of guys with balaclavas on for decades, the Celtic support, before there even was a Green Brigade. They're all running about dressing like they're a INLA operative in 1970s Londonderry or something like that, on the bog side or whatever. This is what the wee olive underparts kind of jackets is all about and all that. But that's fine. That's not been noticed. Or that's okay. Whereas our guys running on with their form of balaclava, it's so they don't get identified by the cameras, but it gets turned into these guys are more evil than anything I've ever seen before. That's proper othering. It's playing to the galleries, because the Celtic board have an absolute nightmare this season. So it does them no harm to play up to the bigotries, the othering that goes on from both sides in any football rivalry, really. But I think it was the day of the Carabao Cup final. Was it the English League Cup final? I think I nipped it. Was that the same day Celtic beat off Dundee United at Tannadice, when again they were rushing their face masks on and all that. It was like a few weeks later, the following week, and they're rushing the director's box at Tannadice for their own directors for the second time this season. And the first time was a boy with a knife and all that. I'm not into that kind of gossipy stuff, but when I see Rangers supporters getting fucking othered like this for doing nothing worse than any other set of young, overly zealous supporters, it pisses me off. But I jumped in the car. I was all right. I'm going to get in the motor and go down to the shops to get some scran in, so I can sit and beast into some crisps or that during the English Cup final. And I put on the radio, and I must have been at the previous day or something. It was on BBC Radio Scotland, so I must have been listening to it the previous day. It was on Off the Ball. There was this comedian on, and she was just doing a Celtic supporter. So she was taking a bit of a ribbon from Stuart Cosgrove, who did nothing to defend or kind of contextualise what she then came out with. I know, what do you expect? But Stuart Cosgrove was in there talking. She was having a laugh with him. They'd obviously been talking about Celtic getting beat, and she's like, "Oh God, I happened to be on national radio the day my team gets beat." And she's then talking about young men, the toxic masculinity, which is something I always fight against on this pod. I always have done. I get it. I see it happening all the time. In society in general, particularly online and all that. I'm not going to have any of that stuff said against women in particular, but that was the Rangers support. That was the Union Bears who came on the park the previous week against. It was talking about how ultra culture's fantastic, but the Union Bears, they're a different thing altogether. Their toxic masculinity. What you wearing a face mask, son? You usually work in McDonald's, taking orders at McDonald's, which was kind of slagging the workers at McDonald's. It's stuff like that. It was horrific, and it was all about the Union Bears. It was all just, they're the worst of everything in society, the Union Bears, when they're just doing nothing any better or worse than every other ultra group. Most of the Union Bears are providing a lot of colour and a lot of noise at massive football matches that just light up Scottish football. But this was the one transgression, and they're the most evil people on earth, and Celtic have jumped right in the back of that. It's othering, it's out of order, and there's no bloody way Rangers are going to make up for it tomorrow by winning. And if Rangers go out and they win tomorrow and somehow we cost Celtic the title, which we can't do points-wise, we can't actually cost Celtic the title tomorrow. But because Hearts would still be 6 points clear and there's 2 games to go. And Celtic have got Hearts at Parkhead on the next Saturday, so you can't actually technically cost them. We could make it a lot worse for them, but the Rangers fans went out there and started celebrating that and spilled onto the pitch. If you think there's going, you saw the stuff when they got a bit of water sprayed on them by an overzealous Czech international when we beat them at Parkhead this time last season. The reaction to that, the idea that the Celtic fans are crapping themselves in the Union Bears, it's been a whole lot of nonsense. I feel hats off the Union Bears for taking the hit there and doing a classy thing. But let's talk about the fit. But On Thursday, also watching that game, the Aston Villa against Nottingham Forest, the future King Billy is there in the. He's in. So I'm not talking. He's in the stand. I'm not talking about that stuff. I don't do the small-minded stuff. It's only Celtic to do that. That used to be an Archibald Leach stand as well. The bit he's in the main stand at Villa Park, they destroyed a proper Archibald Leach stand. But he's in the, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, is mad celebrating a Europa League semi-final home win. Just come home. Just come home, mate. We forgive your granny for what she did with the HMRC. Okay, we'll let that go. But you obviously just want to be watching the Rangers European. We had that 4 years ago against RB Leipzig, and you were lapping it up. So something he shares with his people, the future King Billy. I think I've actually been to a European final in that stadium, Your Majesty. I've done one better than you. I don't mean the Super Cup. The Super Cup isn't a European final. It's just a ceremonial game. When Villa played the Super Cup, I mean Barcelona. Barcelona, they beat in '82 because Barcelona won. They won the Cup Winners' Cup at the Nou Camp 10 years after Rangers won at the Nou Camp. Barcelona 1982. And Villa won European Cup in 1982, so that was a Super Cup match. It's not a final. No, folk, that's not a major European trophy or anything like that. But I was there the 1999 Cup Winners' Cup final, the last ever match in the European Cup Winners' Cup. I was there, Real Mallorca against losing to Lazio, and John Gregg was on the pitch because there was a captain there, a representative of every team that had won the Cup Winners' Cup through the years. Gerd Muller was there for the Bayern team that beat John Gregg in '67. I don't know if he kicked Gerdy, whatever, but that was quite a night, being a European final there. I felt totally ambivalent about everything in general on Tuesday and Wednesday. It's perhaps because I'm exhausted by the whole rigmarole of managerial sackings, rearing its ugly kind of one-note head again. I support every Rangers manager, and that apparently is a sign of colossal naivety, a stance which makes me wonder why anybody supports a football club at all. It's all naivety. This kind of get real. He's got to go. Wake up. They're going, wake up. You're shelling out all this money to go and watch 11 guys you've never met kick a ball about. The get real ship has sailed. I've said this so many times, but we're in it for the love. You've got to create the love. And I have to get to a point where a manager has definitely lost it before I want him sacked. I don't think we're quite there yet. I knew Danny Röhl's presser would tell us everything. I wanted to see and hear what his plans were and how he was going to react before. That meant more to me than even having his departure confirmed by Celtic on Sunday. I wanted to see how he felt about the whole thing. Was he coming across as like a man who knew why we'd lost on Monday and wasn't that fussed about it because he knew we were going to win big next season? I wanted to see it anyway. I got to the point where I just wanted to get in Derek McInnes to shut up the kind of Scottish identity guff that's been spouted. We need to have more Scottish players. We are fucking Glasgow. Just 99 or 90%, or 95%. I don't want to upset the boys and girls from Northern Ireland, but so many of our supporters, the vast majority, are from Scotland. We're in Scotland. It's never going to go away. But we should get Derek McInnes in because, well, he's going to win the league. Derek McInnes, we now hope he's going to win the league. It's definitely a recommendation. I would be interested to see Derek McInnes as Rangers manager, but I'm not particularly fussed about it. I think it's a bit of nonsense, the basis for wanting to bring him in. But he has the Jamestown Analytics, so he's worked the kind of modern bent of running a football club. Has Derek McInnes, he can maybe fit in with our own data analysis model that we keep hearing about from the 49ers. But I think, as I was saying on Jersnet last night with Ben, I think we're investing in a kind of Red Bull model of players and coaches just fitting into a system that's already there. You get Parag Marati's got he's chairman of Leeds, not a connection, and they've got their connections with Red Bull, the sponsorship and the management that have been in there, that the head coaches have had in there. So I think I might have said on Jersnet last night as a snagging item for that, I might have said Thomas Frank when I actually meant Daniel Farke. I was just listing the kind of managers who will do the rounds, the Red Bull style managers who'll do the rounds, and one of them will probably end up at Rangers as a replacement for Danny Röhl along the line, and hopefully it'll be a smooth transition. As I said to Ben last night, did we want Danny Röhl sacked when we come in as manager? Well, we're 8th in the league at the end of October. Did we say to ourselves, right, if he doesn't win the league this season, I want him sacked by the end of the season? No. It's just, yet again, we kind of cope with the reality of us not winning the league. Yes, Celtic have been poor this season. Hearts are amazing for Hearts, but not so good that we shouldn't be able to overtake them. But after a takeover, a disastrous managerial appointment in the summer, not to have caught them, is it really that bad? Is it meriting us sacking the manager? Was the condition we put on him when he took the job that he must win the title this season? If not, well, why does that change when you see the way we didn't win the title? I think it's just frustration, to be honest. There was clearly a chance to win the league, but I think we're confusing normal football and frustration with kind of criminal negligence. That's not what happened. But we always choke like this at this point of the season. That's one of the big complaints that's going out on social media. This from other Rangers podcasters. We always I'm sick of this. We choke like this all the time. Well, Danny Röhl hasn't choked like this all the time. This is the first time he's been here at this time of the season. He's not even completed a full season in charge. He won't, by this time next week, he won't have completed a full season in charge of Rangers. He's only been here since late October. But there was a pattern of him not reacting to things in games. The Motherwell game at Ibrox, which we lost. Not getting away from it, we lost. It was a major blow. But the top six is supposed to be tough, and this season it's tougher than ever. It's actually working for once because there's been a condensing of the quality gap in Scottish football. We were 2-0 down at half time. He made 3 substitutions and it brought the game back to 2 each. And he made another 2 substitutions after we brought the game back to 2 each before we lost the game. He changed the. I think that's what I would love to know what was discussed when they went on that trip to Spain. When they went, I'm convinced he had convinced himself, or thought he could convince the players to play the 4-2-2-2 system without Nadiri and Romans. Jayden Magoma and Bojan Majowski could fill their places, and it hasn't worked. The players haven't been able to do it. But I know we wanted it changed after 16 minutes in that game, but that's kind of stuff that's going to devastate a team's confidence when Danny Röhl is just trying to patch things up this season. He's taken a beat-up car and he's just patching it up the best he can to make it roadworthy. To get too fancy, to try too much with it, is going to bust the engine again or whatever. It's not got the capacity. I'm not a car person, obviously. I think maybe we're expecting too much. There's a pattern, perhaps, not to change that much that early in a game would destroy any kind of confidence he's built up in the team, and he clearly wants them. From what we see on the park and from what he said in his press conference on Friday, he clearly wants his team to be able to develop game management within them. So he wants to give them a chance to alter stuff for themselves during the game, because they're going to have to if they want to get any better. And I think it's naive on our part to think substitutions solve everything. For me, it's right down there with the whole thing, like when Chris Boyd wasn't getting played by Walter in Europe. But he scores goals. Chris Boyd he barely scores goals against Celtic. He scores goals against everybody other than big level teams that we have to kind of go toe to toe with, teams that have of a level comparable to our own. Chris Boyd, it'd be negligent not to play him against Aberdeen, Dundee United, Hibs and Hearts at that point. But to play him against Celtic is a bit of a risk, as is, and to play him in Europe, he clearly shown up, especially in the Champions League. It was being a man down, being a man short. We weren't going to have enough dominance of the ball to make the best of Chris Boyd, and he couldn't contribute enough in other areas. But it just became a thing. Boyd scores goals, you should play him in Europe. That's why we're getting pumped in Europe. And I think it's the same. We've got something to get our teeth into that gives us a kind of justification, it would seem, for what is basically frustration. The fact reality's caught up with us this season. So it's the substitute. He's not reacting quick enough. I think the game against Celtic, which was, don't get me through, I'm going through all this stuff as well. I'm feeling it. I would actually think I feel it worse than most folk. But we all think that, don't we? The game against Celtic, we were 2-0 up, blowing them away the first half. The league last league derby. They then are obviously coming back to 2 each. Celtic, they're obviously coming back into the game. When Celtic pulled the first goal back, he's given the players that got us 2-0 up their own head in the second half. Celtic pulled the game back. We made 2 substitutions. I'm sure we made at least 2 substitutions. If not 3. I think it was 64 minutes, 76 minutes, 80 odd minutes. I think we made 3 substitutions after Celtic had it back at 2-1 before Celtic pulled it back to 2 each. He was reacting, and he's not completely overwhelming the team we changed to totally. A complete reset can be just as bad for a team as persisting with the same with the same formation, with the same personnel. So I think it's overplayed, the reaction. But there's a team trained to play for Russell Martin suddenly having a new style and therefore a new fitness requirement. This was talked about in the Rangers review this week. Thrust upon them in October. We were so optimistic after the 60-minute Falkirk. We all felt as if it's on. This is on. And folk are going, and it just took 2 games for them to blow it. It took 2 games for you to blow it. It took 2 games for you to blow your confidence into that's it, he's got to go. You're forgetting really quickly how much you trusted this guy a few weeks ago. But it was all dependent on him winning. Well, it's always going to be the case. And there's no loyalty there. There's no love of the club. There's no support for the club. If it's just the minute somebody makes a mistake, they've got to go. If there's no contextualising, you're actually going to make things worse for the club. I feel it's very reform votery. It's very kind of, we don't trust Labour or the Lib Dems or whoever because they make out they're trying to make things better. But they did see sell her house and didn't pay a certain tax or whatever like that. There's definitely up to some. Whereas if guys are actually in your face going, aye, let's get rid of immigrants, let's burn everything down, they're as pissed off as me, so I'll vote for them. They're openly telling me they're going to destroy the country. That's great. And I think that's it feels like positivity, even patience, is too much like progressiveness these days, and folk don't want to know about that because everybody's fucking miserable, and what they want to do is keep empowering the people that made them miserable because we're scared to invest, we're scared to try anything, we're scared to stick with one plan. Sorry, I'm getting a bit off the. Look, folks, I've got a confession to make. I keep this a bit dark, as you know, really, or you don't know. I've kept it a bit dark, and nobody's got an idea, but I feel I'm kind of trapped in a closet here. I'm going to come out and just, and I trust you guys to share this with you. I'm fat, right? I'm actually fat. I know. You wouldn't have taken me for that. I'm sick of acting. I'm sick of living a lie. I am actually fat. In fact, let's be honest about it. It's not like somebody's saying I'm bisexual when they mean they're actually gay. Just so their parents can think, oh, still got a chance to marry somebody of the opposite sex in a few years. Nah, I'm actually gay. Let's just say that to kind of ease the pain for you. I'm actually morbidly obese. I'm not just fat. I'm morbidly obese, and one of the things being morbidly obese is every now and then you will lose weight. You'll have a bit of right go at it. You'll have a right go at losing weight, and I have lost like practically all the weight at times in the past. I used to play football and all that quite a lot. I've done 3 half marathons very slowly, but this was back in my 20s and that. I used to, just when it stops, it really stops. I'm kind of one thing or the other type of person, and that's all sorts of psychological, historical reasons and that for me. Eating and drinking like a fish, mostly it's because the kind of really fatty food and bevy is fantastic. I really enjoy it. It's really nice. But every now and then you'll lose the weight, and then you get to the point I'm at just now. I'm far too old to be this big. I'm like nearly 24 stone. I'm over 6 foot, but I'm no over 7 foot. This isn't going to work. I'm starting to actually be uncomfortable. I've got to seriously lose weight. But one of the things every time you do this is because you have done it before, because you have lost the weight before, because you know how it works. Like, I hate the phrase "get a weight problem." When I eat and drink too much and don't do enough exercise, I get really fat. When I eat healthily and I go for a 2-mile walk before my breakfast, I lose weight. My weight's fine. It's working absolutely the way it should work. It's just stopping myself. Like the various things I do work-wise as well, very desk-based, and you can get caught up in it and forget to exercise and blah, blah, blah. But the thing you realise is how much work is going to be required. You remember how much, and you feel kind of cheated. You feel like, remember that time I spent like a whole year going out jogging every morning, and then, I knew I'm too old to do that, and I'm too fat, it's going to ruin my knees, so I've got to walk. I've got to go out walking, every morning to get to a stage where I might be able to get a wee shuffle going to be. It doesn't change the fact that you have to start again. We can't be arsed starting again as a club. We sack this guy, or we're going to be patient with this guy, and we don't trust him, and he hasn't won in. I just want the trophies. We all just want the trophies. I just want to be thin, But we tried the Ozempic, or whatever the British equivalent is of the weight loss drug. EBTs, we called it. It didn't work. It had bad knock-on long-term effects. You've got to do it honestly, and it doesn't matter how much you've done in the past towards it. If we're fucked up, if we keep sacking managers, you have to go back to square one. You have to start the process again. You can't argue with it. You're fat again. The only way it's going to work is by getting out your kit in the morning, feeling like crap, going for walks, and cutting out the Mars bars and the Cronenberg. So this is what we're going to have to do. It doesn't. I think there's a frustration that we have to go through it again. As supporters, it's always been like this. We've been through this for years, but we're going to go through it again. This is just sorry. Hearts at Motherwell tonight makes such a difference to the dynamic of this game tomorrow. Hearts win will hurt Celtic more than us, I think, at this point in time, because we've resigned ourselves to not win the league. So maybe Celtic would be ready to chuck it tomorrow. Or if Motherwell take something off Hearts tonight, Celtic will be extra psyched and it'll make it even harder for us. Or Hearts get beat tonight and Celtic go out and just pump us rotten to take away a lot of the goal difference and get it back to, would it be back to 3 points? Difference between them and Hearts, you don't know how it's going to work, but I think it will have a really serious effect. It already feels seriously diluted in terms of kind of momentousness for us this game, because we're almost certainly not going to win the league or anything this season. So Celtic at Parkhead, and it's like it's been taken off us by somebody else. It wasn't Celtic. It's usually Celtic, but it's been taken off us by Hearts. It's weird to be following up an Old Firm game as the kind of after the Lord Mayor's show for us anyway. And we haven't had. We had that like in the 1990s the other way around, whereas beating Celtic in Old Firm games, wasn't it? It was Aberdeen, we had to beat them. Celtic were just another 3 points, and obviously psychologically it was massive. But it's quite weird to be in that situation again, and that's all on Hearts. Well done them. I grew up, as I said before, with Dundee United and Aberdeen winning league titles, so beating Aberdeen or Dundee United for a while in the 80s was more prestigious for us than beating Celtic. Celtic was always the fun one. That was the one that always really felt great. But this is that kind of condensed version tomorrow, possibly, of the 4 each game this season. The 4 each game with Celtic in March 1986, which I was at. I've told you all my stories about that one. Where it's like, we're 3-1 down in that game. So, even though Murdo McLeod scored that equaliser right at the end, to go for 3-1 down to be winning 4-3, you can't really argue if Celtic managed to pull one goal back. We still did quite well that day. And you're like, but we only come back to 4-3 because Wally McStay gets sent off. Celtic were down to 10 men. That's only when we come back. And then that equaliser for Murdo McLeod, that's how Celtic won the league. We didn't think Celtic were going to win the league. We thought Hearts were going to win the league that season, but Celtic ended up winning the league on goal difference. If we'd cancelled out that Murdo McLeod equaliser, or if we'd gone 5-3 up instead of just 4-3, we'd at least stopped Celtic winning the league. It would have been Hearts winning the title. And this is what it feels like. This new Danny Röhl, he's done well to get us back to a situation, so we can't be too pissed off because the Jambos are going to win the league anyway. They'll be doing that Odyssey. But you might actually be constant. It might actually be, he's only been able to come back because Celtic and Hearts are so crap compared to what we usually have to do to win the league, and we can't get far enough in front of them to stop Celtic still having a chance of pinching the title from Hearts and making it a horrific season. We can still finish above Celtic this season, and that's huge, not just for the Champions League place, but for our kind of self-respect. It would only be the second time in 15 years that we'd managed to finish above Celtic. It lets Hearts' kind of national success incubate our little internecine success, which it could be a legacy thing. It could really affect how things work going forwards. As I said before, I've always thought for the most part that any kind of apparently failing Rangers manager should go at the very... I think most of them do get sacked at the very moments they should get sacked. I don't think we hang on to anybody too long. There's a duty of care, as I was saying to Ben and Jersnet last night, not to sack managers too quickly. We've had incidents, like Walter Smith when he took over as Rangers manager the first time towards the end of the 1991 season. A few games in, we get beat 3-0 by Motherwell at Fir Park. It looks like we're chucking the league title. A lot of Rangers supporters were in no way impressed by Walter Smith taking over from Graham Souness. We wanted another established, glamorous name. Walter Smith takes over, then he loses 3-0 to, not straight away, but he loses 3-0 to Motherwell at Fir Park. He's chucked it. It was a mistake. But we stuck by him. And we won that league. Stephen Gerrard, I was saying to Ben again last night, I'm just keep saying about Jersey in case anybody here happened to watch the two pods. that was we went so close with Steven Gerrard that we lost to Hearts in the Scottish Cup, and then Hamilton in the league the following midweek. There was a chance he was going out the door. There was let's clap for Steven Gerrard in the 20th minute or whatever it was to prove it. And by the time I think we were getting beat off Hamilton at that time, there wasn't a lot of applause for Steven Gerrard at this point in time, but we hung on to him and we got that league title eventually. I think Rangers managers are rarely sacked before they should be. This would be a horrible place, though, for it to be confirmed that Danny Röhl should get sacked. Dick Advocaat is the last Rangers manager to lose 3 league games in the trot, and he did that 25 and a half years ago, over a quarter century ago, and that kind of confirmed Martin O'Neill, of all people, had chased him, had chased Dick Advocaat. But the little general had a treble and a double under his belt, so he got another year before we brought in Alec McLeish, who gave it right back to. He gave it some. We turned the tide again, and we got a treble under Alec McLeish as well, and another league title and a few cups as well. He did fantastically well. But if Röhl loses on Sunday, we're looking at a statement of some sort on Monday. I think Monday morning, either to back him or sack him from the board. So there might be kind of more potential negativity than positives attached to this game, for the avoidance of negativity as opposed to stuff to really be up for. But he'll need his collection of loanees and retirees and up for salees to do him a serious turn. Will Danny Röhl in this game? He may, like kind of Marvin Bartley at Livingston, be reapplying for his job effectively. I mean, most managers are. Every game they play they're being re-interviewed for their own job. But let me try to make Marvin Bartley. He hadn't won many games, but he really had stopped the rot in the form of that Livingston team. Maybe they just wanted the glamour of Scotty Arfield taking the job, and not the best of Scott Arfield at Livingston, but I thought it was terrible the way they treated Marvin Bartley. Livy, but it's none of my business. So I think the Parkhead pitch tomorrow, Rangers, we need to do something dramatic to react to all the drama there's been within the Rangers support about the manager's position this week. And we need a spectacular performance to avoid the unsightly spectacle of, for the second time this season, a home game with Hibs being held up, if not just like dominated, by calls for the manager's head, calls for the head coach's head. We had that already with Russell Martin, that League Cup game against Hibs. I don't want it on Wednesday night for our last home game of the season. So, but more important than ever, I think, was the presser, the pre-match presser, to see how he came across. And to be fair, I think yesterday Danny Röhl handled his pre-match presser pretty well. He was laid back. He looked neither resigned to his fate nor overly defensive or desperately hanging on to his job. He just came across like Danny Röhl. Business as usual. It's quite reassuring as far as I was concerned. He told the players straight after the game at Tynecastle, apparently, that we have a responsibility to win the last 3 games, to deliver on Sunday, to make our fans proud. It was constantly asked about the mentality issue by the hacks there who were sniffing bloods. But Tom English wasn't there, so it can't be. It can't be time to sack Danny Röhl. But the mentality thing, he said, if we just speak about mentality, we will not move forward in the future. He's obviously sick of hearing this mentality stuff. We have to make a lot of things better and improve the standards. Set new standards by changing things in this building. Is it Auchenhowie they have the press? Is it Ibrox? We have to play for 90 minutes. We have to dominate whole games. We couldn't get there fast enough in the last 6 months. But the work put in since he arrived in October, basically, the work that's been put in made Monday's results kind of tough to take, tough to accept. But it gives him a big motivation, he was saying, to increase the standards for next season. The rumours about Wolfsburg, he's not having the mentality thing. I think he just thinks it's stuff on the pitch, just something to get players used to a certain way of playing, telling them giving them the tools to cope with stuff. He's also inferring heavily that the squad was a state. He's done the best he can, really, and he's still working on it. The Wolfsburg rumours, the rumours that he's going to go to VFL. He can't go to Wolfsburg because he's not got the right initials. It's Wolfgang Wolf, Wout Weghorst. If you're going to go to Wolfsburg, no Volkswagen town built by the Nazis, you've got to have a WW in your name. But the Wolfsburg rumours, he laughed them off quite convincingly. He said he was. If you looked at the papers in the summer, I was going to have like 20 different job offers, and that wasn't the case. It's quite, if Danny Röhl is going to Wolfsburg, then it is the most evil, shitty move ever, because he really has. He really did convince us yesterday. There's no chance he's going to Wolfsburg. So it was. I was believing him. It was very, very believable. From his side, he was saying, and this was modesty, and from his side, his long-term future is to win and retain titles at Rangers. A good process is not good enough, he said. Rangers should be winning many trophies and retaining them. He was basically saying, like, if you'll have me, I might get sacked. You know, the owners might not want me. The fans might not want me. But as far as he's concerned, he's here for the duration. I know because his family are still in Germany. That's making it seem more likely from the outside that he's going to move. But we'll see what happens. He was asked about the last win at Parkhead, because he won his previous trip to Parkhead, albeit that was against Wilfred Nancy's Celtic, so it doesn't count. But he said that was a positive example of his team reacting well to a poor first half, because we were getting beat 1-0 at half time, playing poorly, come out the second half and totally dominated. So I think he's shown there by that answer. We've got the mentality. Nobody told us we've got great mentality after that game, so it shouldn't be a terrible mentality when we lose a game. Setting the standards. He said it's all about setting standards. You can be the world champion in training, but you have to take it on into games. You can't be world champion in training. It's got to be taken into games. You've got to do that. I think there's also a wee message here for the team that they didn't work hard enough in that second half at Tynecastle. We need great, i.e. better game management, because opponents will always have moments in the game. You need to respond with energy. How we played in the last two games, and they lost to Motherwell, they lost to Hearts, has made it clear what we need in the summer. So it's not about Scottish players, it's about the right player, the right age, the right culture. It has nothing to do with it. Doesn't matter what age they are, what culture they come from. It's just the right players for the club, and that was a wee response to this whole growing idea that we don't have enough Scottish players in the team. Which is a borderline racist way of criticising the Rangers team. There's a lot to it. There is a lot to it. Somebody who knows the lie of the land, who knows the culture of the league we were in. I know. I get that. It's maybe better to have that, but I don't think it's beyond the ken of the players that are involved at Rangers at any one time to work out what's going to happen every game they play in Scotland. Their opposition is going to come for them. So he was doing really well with this kind of patter. It was talking about setting standards. It's not about where the players actually come from. It's not about the nationality. He said, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I'm losing the track here. I've got this written down, and my writing's absolutely horrendous. Loanees. He's got 6 loanees. You've got Tav retiring. Will there be another rebuild this summer? This was another journalist hoping to put the fear of God into supporters by using the rebuild word. It's obviously going to have to be a rebuild. It's an ongoing rebuild. So basically he said, yeah, we need to be on point in April and May to win titles. That's what he learned at Bayern. You need to be on point. Have your squad at its best, peaking in April and May. It's almost like he's saying, I knew how to get this squad up to April and May, but then because Two Romans was injured, he cited Dujon Sterling and Mikey Moore as well. It was a struggle for them. They're not fully fit. They can't play whole games or all games. They weren't 100% fit for the split for the last 6 fixtures. And it's like he can do the whole bit. That was easy, getting us ready for a title challenge as we headed into the last 6. But if we don't have the squad or the fitness, then it's not going to happen. These small details will need to be rebuilt, need to be fixed during the summer, according to Danny Röhl. Are players' egos, another evil question, were players' egos hampering the team? Were they playing for themselves? It's always a desire to make it personal, make it about people's character. For him, it's team first. And Daniel, he didn't say that wasn't the case. In fairness to the journalist that was asking that question, he didn't say egos weren't getting in the way. But for him, it's the team first. And I criticise the player. I think like Diamandi and Nico Raskin just turn up when they want to. So it's something I've thrown at him. I can't blame a journalist for asking that question. But for Daniel, it's all about the team first. He puts the team before him. It's always about the team. He refused to say it wasn't a problem, but just we need more consistency. That's what they need to get into the team at this moment. The players don't adapt well enough. They didn't adapt well enough to Hearts in the second half. I think Chris Jack was now pushing this point. At this point in time, Chris Jack of the Rangers Review of the Herald Evening Times. Hearts had improved in the second half, said Danny Röhl, and we failed to adopt to that, which we could all see as fans watching it. He found some patterns in the way we played in that second half. that we should not do. That's the way he was putting it in German. There were some patterns that we should not do, and there were some individual errors. We were too lazy to recover the ball. We needed more determination to keep a clean sheet. And that's something he deals with on the training pitch. He'll obviously be addressing that with the players. And maybe that's the best way to prepare for going to Parkhead. You're going to prove that you're not a bunch of slackers. Sunday's not about stopping Celtic winning a title as far as he's concerned. We need no motivation for this game. He obviously thought the idea of going to Parkhead to stop Celtic winning the league was a bit small-minded. There's no motivation required. It's about winning 3 points and a good victory to give to the fans. He chipped in his bit about having relieved or saved us from a kind of hopeless situation in October to let us know that he done really well compared to how we were placed in the league in October when he arrived. But that's why the past 2 results are so gutting, and Sunday could help kind of soften that blow of having done so much hard work to get into a title winning situation or a title challenging situation, then blow it in the space of 2 games. He's really motivated and ambitious for next season to make more progress and to do that, to be on the front foot from the first day of next season. The owners are committed to him. He was asked about his own position, if he felt as if he's getting the assurance from above. The owners are truly committed to him. He feels he's in the right place with the right people. He's got a lot of motivation and he's positive. He feels it every day in the conversation he has with the owners about what they want to change in the summer. The energy that he brings to this club, that the owners bring to this club, and it's not about just being a one-hit wonder. That was a wee pop at Stevie Gerrard having 155, but a club that can win titles in a row. That's his phrase. We need to become a club that can win titles in a row. That'll do for me, Danny. He's not, as implied by another kind of shitty question, ruled by sports science. He just uses the information sports science give him. He gets as frustrated as anybody else when he can't put out his favourite 11, his best 11, because he's been told that somebody's get injured. But obviously he needs to go with that. He was pushed on the perceived lack of reaction at Tynecastle from his players when Hearts went man for man, etc. Changed the formation in the second half. He's saying we've got these floaters, which made me think of the floaters and anchors describing Luis Enrique's system at PSG. But we've got these floaters who were very active, and Hearts couldn't keep up with them. That's our midfield, really, I think, and a couple and our centre halves as well. I think they couldn't keep up with them in the first half. But when Hearts went man to man in the second half, we couldn't move them. We stopped moving with intensity to get away from our markers. So he's trying to train them on the job, as far as I'm concerned, Danny Röhl. That's why he's not made substitutions instantly. And watching the game back, watching the second half back, Hearts really have like 10 minutes. And then they get their equaliser. And then Rangers are back outside the Hearts box, getting into the Hearts box. No cutting edge. But then Hearts have another like 5 minutes and they get the winner. And then it's back to being all Rangers again. It wasn't as disastrously terrible as we're perhaps making out, especially for a team at our stage of development. I know Hearts are just a new team as well, but they've had the whole summer and the whole season on an upward curve, really stable in what they're doing. But he said, I think he's trying to train them in the job, and he's trying to train them, to think for themselves. Kind of like if you give a team a substitution, it will maybe draw with Hearts at Tynecastle. If you teach it how to think tactically, it will win 10 straight league titles. So that's what he's trying to do. And I think there's an anger with the Rangers support that he's doing that just now, where he should just have went out there and been more kind of involved and just taken them by the hand and tell them how to stop Hearts beating them. But a lot of teams have tried that this season, including Celtic, and have been unable to stop Hearts. No disgrace. This led to another question about the desire. There's a basic desire. Is that a problem when it comes to your players don't have the desire to do it? That's got to be a real concern. It's a push from a certain journalist to try and make sure it was an absolute disaster. And he says it's not a basic thing, the desire. It's about making the right decisions on the pitch as a group together. That's how he's trying to train them on the job to think for themselves. The players are going to this game on Sunday thinking the one thing they can. No, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to. But we could extend our unbeaten run over 90 minutes against Celtic to actually 10 games, which is very disingenuous, seeing as they've beat us in a League Cup final and pit us out both the cups this season since then. But Danny Röhl's trying to avoid losing 3 straight league games for the first time in Rangers history for 25 years. It's important for him to beat Martin O'Neill for the first time, I think, in in 4 clashes, and we're also trying to beat Celtic at Parkhead 3 times in a row as well. It'd be brilliant for him, I think, to beat Celtic twice at Parkhead in the one season, but especially after losing to O'Neill twice this season. In the Cups, there's a lot of stuff on the line. My team, my starting 11, and I've had to write this down. I'm basically reading this off. I'm absolutely knackered with the amount of podding and histrionics this week. I'm sorry if this is a bit of a dead on arrival kind of podcast and far too long as usual, but it'll all be over soon. I had on Jersnet last night, I was going, it's going to be 4-2-2-2. I wasn't convinced because I thought the 4-2-2-2 seems, it needs to be a tad more conservative at Parkhead when you're going to Parkhead against Martin O'Neill Celtic. And I think whatever happens with Hearts tonight, Celtic will be right up for it. They'll be wanting to get ripped into us and keep. They're on a wee winning run just now as well. So they're the best run of the season. I think there's 4 league wins in the trot, and they're on that as is. So I thought we need to watch ourselves. But I thought the 4-3-3 is probably more conservative. That makes a bit more sense. But then you're having to fit the whole problem we've got just now on the right hand side. Scott Olsen not convincing anyway. Gassama, especially when he starts games, not convincing that right hand side. I don't know what's happened with Oliver Antman. I don't know why he's not getting a game. Maybe not fancied, but I don't know, that seemed too cautious in that it doesn't partner up Chermiti if you go with a 4-3-3. So I couldn't really work out what to do, and I have to say, since I said 4-2-2-2 on Jersnet last night, Friday night, I watched Rangers review. What is it? The Saturday debrief or the Saturday briefing. We podcast we put it on a Saturday. I watched that this morning, and Joshua Barry just called it, and I can't get it out of my head. It's spot on. You know, it's a narrow 4-3-3 with Nadiri on that right hand side. You know, it's more cautious, but it's also as bold. I can't see Danny Röhl not wanting to go for it to some extent. He wants us to attack all the time, and I think we should go for it. But you want to do it semi-sensibly. And so it's like a 4-3-3, but with Nadiri. Have Romans play. Hopefully, there was no kind of injury updates in yesterday's presser, and there was a very kind of phlegmatically staunch tour Romans sent out to talk to the media in the embargoed player interview. I was watching that today as well. So it makes you think Tour Romans is going to be playing. He's going to be starting in this game. We saw Nadiri coming on the other night, and if Danny Röhl's a guy who listens to sports science, he's only come on Nadiri as a Tour Romans. They've only come on at Tynecastle because they're getting fitter, so they should be fit enough. We're hoping they'll be fit enough to start at Parkhead. And we've been saying the 4-2-2-2 can't work without Nadiri and Romans. The two of them are available, so you're doing a kind of 4-2-2-2 style, which led to the 2-each draw with Celtic at Ibrox. Remember, in Celtic just defended like hell in the game at Ibrox, the cup game at Ibrox as well. They're not particularly confident of attacking us, but this gives us a bit more. They'll be very confident at Parkhead. As I say, no team in the world smells blood the way Celtic do. So I think this 4-3-3 that's narrow and has Nadiri in the right-hand side is definitely the way to go. I can't remember exactly. That's the two key components of it. I can't remember exactly what Joshua Barry said in terms of his team. So my team, which is almost certainly copying his, is Jack Burton in goals, Dujon Sterling at right back, 2 Romans at left back. You get Fernandez and Giga as your centre-halves, and a midfield of Barron, Raskin and Diamandi. I know Conor Barron was sensationally consistent up until he got injured. We were gutted when he got injured. Let's get him back in there. Chukwani has had one kind of poor game too many. I think he's also essential to the 4-2-2-2 in Danny Röhl's mind. I wouldn't be totally surprised if Chukwani starts instead of Barron tomorrow, but I think this is the time to change. So it's Barron, Raskin and Diamandi. Raskin and Diamandi are Parkhead specialists. They love playing against Celtic. They're right up for it. So for all their faults of inconsistency, I think maybe this is the time to have them back in there as well. We want aggression. We need to be up for sickening Celtic, and Diamandi and Raskin certainly buy into that. Nadiri, Chermiti and Moore is your front three. Knowing that JD Gassama, if Mikey Moore's not 100% fit, if he's struggling at all, JD Gassama can come on and play on the left-hand side instead of Mikey Moore, and is better coming on as a substitute as Big Chermiti, he stopped scoring that whole thing. If he scored 4 goals against Celtic, 4 goals against Hearts, and he'd only scored like the 1 goal against Kilmarnock. That was the only other goal he'd scored for Rangers, and that's him. He's banged in 2 against Falkirk. He should have had 2 against Motherwell, really. He officially got 1. The other one should have been attributed to him. They went in off Nico Raskin's head. So, but he's then no skilled at Tynecastle. But him and Lauren Shankland have scored the same number of goals in Rangers Hearts games this season. Big Chirmiti. And if he used to score in this game, he'd be the first player ever of either side to score 5 goals in Old Firm derbies in one season. So hopefully the big man's back on it, and I guarantee him a £20 million sale in the summer. A recap on that: it's a 4-3-3 for me. Jack Butland in goals. Your back 4: Sterling, Fernandes, Giga, Romans. Midfield 3 of Barron, Raskin and Diamande. And then your front 3 is Nadiri on the right hand side, Chirmiti in the middle, and Mikey Moore on the left. The score prediction, I was saying last night in Jersey, I thought it's going to be 3-1 to someone. It's dependent on what happens with the Hearts game for part tonight. That's going to have a bearing, and I don't even know what kind of bearing it's going to have. It just will affect the mentality of somebody or both teams. So I think it's going to be 3-1 to somebody. I can imagine us getting beat 3-1. I can imagine us winning 3-1. So I'll just say it's going to be us. We're going to win 3-1. If Hearts lose or even draw tonight, the title is actually back on for Rangers tomorrow. If Hearts win tonight, we're out of it. We're officially can't win the league. But hopefully the players have had enough backlash in the last 5 days to make them realise what's on the line, their jobs, and enough kind of questions about stopping Celtic winning the league to realise that it's not cold fair to win this game. It's no cold cuts. It's no a meagre prize. It's the chance to redeem themselves by inflicting a serious defeat, which sends a clear message about the future of the power structure in Scottish football. One that won't kind of bother Hearts, but will worry Celtic. It'll exacerbate their wobbles and embolden Rangers support players, owners, and head coach. And the other thing for the players just now is they should go into this game on Sunday thinking of the one thing they can drag out of this season still. They should be motivated to win, because frankly, if they don't win this game tomorrow, and I don't want to see any other fucking Waynes on the pitch after Wednesday night's last home game of the season, go out there and fight for your right to Instagram your Waynes, Rangers. Fight for the right to Instagram your Waynes at Ibrox, and make us, the supporters, the season ticket holders, the background to your family photographs. So that's it. Saturday night for me. It's back to the garden. Blue tits again. I mean, grow up. Robin Redbreast, grow up. It's no that kind of podcast. Goldfinches, bullfinches, and most of all, the resident Mr. and Mrs. Blackbird. The Blackbird's fascinating, aren't they? They're lovely. The wee Blackbird couple. I've got to the stage where I can recognise the female and the male. Their evening songs, beautiful. I think it's a warning telling folk to other blackbirds that they'll kill them if they come onto their patch, but it sounds beautiful to us. I think anybody with a tiny square of grass like I've got in my garden will notice the resident pair of blackbirds, and now I notice them everywhere I go. You know, like at our old house, our previous house, with a kind of long, thin front garden with a hedge round it, and I noticed the black. And I'd get worried when there was cats about after that, because I read up just enough on Wikipedia to learn that, you know, they nest quite near the ground and like to feed on the ground. Blackbirds, you see them dotting about. Went to that 50th, and then my pal's 50th up in Inverness a few weeks ago, and the hotel we're staying in, the front of it was a wee kind of offshoot, but it was an old converted house, so it had a wee tiny garden. And straight away, I'm going there at evening to put the gear into the hotel, and you could notice there's the blackbird dotting about, and I'm thinking, oh, it's got this wee patch of grass, it's got this wee square of grass, Mr. and Mrs. Blackbird with a wee square of grass. It's lovely. And I think I was a few years ago, I was in the East Nuke of Fife, and I've only been there once before. I'm not one of these folk that's got a holiday home in the East Nuke. I didn't know about this area of Fife. It's so glamorous. It's so lovely. It is beautiful. Very, very, very picturesque, all the wee village. We're staying, is it Cellardyke and Strother, right in the border? We're staying there, a great wee place. And we went wee day trips to all the other various wee places like Pitt and Weem and all that. And then is it Creel? It's pronounced, or Crail? I think it's Creel. I think is it the biggest of all these wee kind of fishing villages. But you come up for the harbour, the beautiful harbour, and you up in the kind of main street. There's a lot of lovely historic buildings on the main street, and right at the end there's a church which you think should be a cathedral because it's so big and really old and all that. And it was lovely, very so just dotting about there. You're on your holiday, just been doing a kind of tourist thing. And then I noticed in the grounds of the church, near like kind of old cemetery, I think, maybe I'm wrong about that, but there was this building, which was obviously like a tiny wee church that maybe in my mind, I'm like, oh, maybe a princess or a prince. That'd be so they could do their own private prayers away from the high pot, away from the proles in the church. This tiny, and it's ancient looking, and it was not totally destroyed. That was the whole thing. There's no roof on it. It's just basically almost a kind of hut-sized, a shed-sized, beautiful brick building that had been semi-destroyed. There's no, the walls are crumbling, and there's no roof on it. There's no door on it, obviously, but you can see where the door was, and it's all been allowed to kind of grass over. So it's basically this kind of square of old bricks, with like a grass carpet, if you like. The grass, a perfect square in the middle. And I just saw straight away, I saw the distinctive kind of orangey yellow beak and the fluttering black plumage, and I thought to myself, oh, that's absolutely brilliant. Somebody's burnt down a chapel, fucking ruined it. Yeah, get it, ruin yous. Come on, teddy bears. I'll talk to you after the game, folks.